Join me on a fascinating journey where I show you some of the techniques used in scale aeromodelling. Well, I was going to do a video on a tiger moth that I'm building, exhibit AMOLED, and it's all done, but to get to this point has been 7.5 hours of video, and that's the edited down version, and I think it's just a bit too big. And I think you've seen me build this sort of stuff before, so I'm not gonna bother publishing a video of that. It's kit scale, so it's not exactly it's got all the details that we like doing. So, but what I would like to show you is the new Asuka. It's called ASUKA, and it's a tissue from Woodhouse Free Flight Supplies, and it's in attempt to replace the ESAKI tissue, which is no longer available. So what I thought I'd do is just show you how I use it. And what we've got here is just the tail plane, which I've split into two halves to give me an elevator set and a stabilizer set. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover it and give you an idea of how well or how easy this stuff is. And now that I've got all the techniques sorted out, I can show you how actually this is really good. Now what I will show you, this is the nose block for this tiger moth. That's been covered in one piece of yellow tissue, and it's gone right down into all the indentations and the shapes and everything. So that's what you can do with tissue. You know, people look at tissue and think that when you drape it over a surface, it's got to be in 2 dimensions, but it will actually, when it's wetted, and even with just dope, not water, it will actually conform to a shape. So the first step to covering the surface is to give it a coat of dope. Now this, I'm just going to go around the outside of this. I don't want the inside structure coated in dope. So this is quite thin, although it is the thinner has evaporated a little bit over the course of the evening while I've been doing this. But basically it's 50-50 thinned, so it's fairly thin. It's a bit of a wash of just dope. Normal, in this case, non-shrinking dope. I tend to use non-shrinking dope all the time now, or banana oil, that'll do the same sort of thing, although this is dope. So all I'm going to do is give it a generous coat of dope, thinned dope, all the way around the outside of the structure. Making sure you get the edge, because obviously that's where you're going to wrap the tissue over. Then we do the other side. The reason for this coat of dope is this is the dope that we're actually going to stick the tissue down with. We're not going to rely on the dope soaking through the tissue to do the sticking. We're going to put a coat of dope on there first. Now with the ESAKI we put 2 coats on, and it probably wouldn't hurt to put 2 coats on, but I'm finding that one is enough. However, if the structure hasn't been sealed, you might find that you need to put a coat of dope on first, or a coat of sanding sealer first, sand that away, then put your coat of dope on. So you are effectively ending up with 2 coats. So I'm going to go straight for the dope here, but I might put a second coat on, because thinking about it, that probably would be more sensible. It is a thin mix, although this is a bit thicker than I was using for the rest of the day. So the little X on the elevator there corresponds to the X that's on the stabilizer, and the pair are matched when the 2 X's are aligned. No matter how much you try to make something symmetrical, it never ends up that way, or it doesn't for me. So I'll put one layer on here and I'll let it flash off. It won't take long. In fact, the first part I did was probably already flashed off. So I'll then put a second coat on, and I may well just edit that whole process out. There we go. So I'll put a second layer just quickly around the outside of this. Now the ESAKI, the dope definitely didn't soak through it. Such a close weave. But this stuff's not quite as fine, not quite so opaque either. So the dope does go through this. So if you've got a nice thin wash of dope, it does actually go through the tissue, but I wouldn't stick it down that way. Not the way we used to do it. I'd stick it down this new way, and you'll see in a minute when we get around to it. Okay, a quick second coat on this. Now you should really sand down between coats because the dope might lift the grain a little bit. I'm not going to worry about it too much because when I put the tissue on, I'm going to rub the edges with my finger, and if with the dope being wet, that'll actually smooth off the finish around the edges. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm sure Richard Crossley or Mike Stewart probably do exactly that. Sand it between every layer of dope, and they are perfectionists and they do a superb job. I'm just a bit of a hack really, just do enough to get by. A bit lazy really, but don't tell anybody. Can't remember whether I did this side already of that leading edge. Won't hurt to do it again. And there we go. That's those bits all done. So as I said, I've got a jar of thinners and a jar of thinned dope, 50-50. So I'm going to do the stabilizer first. I'll show you how easy this is to use. Now I think there might be a shiny side and a not so shiny side, but it's not as clear as with the ESAKI. It's really obvious which is the shiny side, and this is not quite so obvious for me. But my eyesight's notoriously bad. So, oops. The worst thing about this tissue is it doesn't like to be manhandled. And you'll see when we get it wet exactly what I mean. Let's go right over to the edge. I'm covering this moth in yellow because the underside of the airplane is going to be yellow and the upper surface is going to be brown and green. So I'll leave the underside all yellow and then just airbrush the upper surface. So what we do first is I'm going to wet that, and it doesn't take much water to wet it. Okay, and then you can just kind of semi-pull it taut. You see how that crease that was in the middle is gone. So then we take our fine brush, which is usually clean. This is just thinners. Watch. See it flow straight in? So you just tease the tissue out, away from the centre. See how quickly that's taking? Probably should have started with the trailing edge. And then I just pull it taut, a little bit on the edge. Just again working it away from the centre, just to put some tension on the tissue. Remember, it's still wet. Not very wet, but it is wet. So there's no wrinkles. This is a flat piece and you're going to say, oh well, that's easy, it's flat. It's going to be not hard to do it with a flat piece of tissue. Well, it's kind of just as easy with the rest of it. I did the fuselage this way. Just pull it towards yourself. In this case, just pull it away from the centre. As you can see, there was a little wave just there, but not a wrinkle, but just a wave. That's gone. And there we go. How easy is that? Now I'll just give it a few minutes, because all I'm going to do now is trim around the edges. Now normally I'd use a, well, let's try using the knife. I want to get fairly close. You'll have to change the blade frequently. I've been told by my friend Matt's that actually one of the half razor blades, you can buy single-edged razor blades, and they are much sharper and they hold their edge much better than a scalpel will. But this is what I got, and this is what I like using. So there we go. Now all we've got to do is turn the edges over. Okay? You still with me? Remember, we did the edges with, we've already got dope on the edges. So just some thinners, rub your finger. Oops, lifted a bit there. And turn it right around to the other side. Then you can stick it on this side as well. See? It's turned around. What I think I'll do is I'll just go around the edge and just turn it over. Just get it to stick down. See how easy that is? Nothing difficult about that, is there? Even I could do it. Remember, this is just neat thinners. It's no dope, just thinners. I'll keep going around the outside before I completely tuck it over. This is the edge that I think will be hardest to set. As you can see, it's not proving a problem. This is lovely tissue, I really like it. And its wet strength is really good, so when it is wet with water, it doesn't tear. Well, it does tear if you pull it hard enough, but it's not like the cheaper tissues that really just will fall apart in your hands. This stuff doesn't. You can force it quite a bit before it will tear on you. How's that? Now all we've got to do is go completely over the other side. Just stick it down against the framework. Now when you put the next layer on this side, you need to put some more dope around the edges. Where the tissue is, it will have blocked access, as it were, to the dope. It will still work, you can still get some coming through, but it's better if you just go over this seam, go all the way around the outside again with just a quick layer of dope, a thin dope. All this is doing is activating or softening the dope that we put on the frame through the tissue, and then it hardens, solidifies, sticks it down. Hoping you can see all this going on. See how easy that is? People struggle with tissuing, and I have struggled as well, but I think now that I've got a handle on it, I think I'm okay. I've actually enjoyed covering this. What you have to do, and it's like nearly everything that's worth doing, the key is preparation. If the surface is beautifully smooth and flat and true, then it's very easy to get a finish like that, which is lovely, isn't it? We do the other side. All I'm going to do for that, I'll show you in its entirety. Go back to the thinned 50/50 dope. Now I'm actually going to thin that down a bit more, because what's happening is, because it's open to the air, the thinners has evaporated a little bit. So I'm just going to get it a bit runny again. It's just thickened up a bit, that's all. And it doesn't need to be. It can be like water, and it'll still work beautifully. Okay. Much thinner now. And then all you got to do is just where the yellow is, that's all you got to coat. A little bit around the edge. Oh, and also over the edge, because you're going to wrap the new yellow around the outside of the surface. But you can cut this piece much closer. Okay, so all we're doing to do now is cut another bit of tissue to cover that with. If I can find my tissue. Now I was trying to leave this a big enough section for a wing, and I have. That would do me one wing. That would be another wing. So there's possibly just enough, doesn't really matter, to do the other side of this out of that. So I'm going to cut it quite close. It's probably going to make it a little bit awkward to deal with, but I want to save the main area for the wings. I've got another 4 sheets of this tissue, so I've got loads, I've got plenty. Right, so you could spray the tissue to make it wet away from the surface, but it's very difficult to handle once it's got a bit of water on it. So I find the best way is actually to lay it over the surface and then spray the water on it. You can see how little I put on there, and then you just gently pull it to, and then back to our little brush again with just thinners. I'm going to do the trailing edge this time. Yeah, you can see it immediately soaks straight through and then sticks down. You can see it just drop against the surface underneath. And that is all you need. So I'm going to do one of the straight edges all the way along, making sure there's no wrinkles in it. Oops. And not drag it like that. That's how you end up with wrinkles. And there we go. So then all I do is I pull it as taut as I can, just gently, tease it out, and a bit over there. Remember, it's still wet, so it's also going to shrink a little bit as it dries. Just pulling it out away from the trailing edge, just stretching it just a little bit as I go. I think we're good. Now in this case, I'm going to cut around the edges with scissors. All I'm doing is leaving enough to tuck around the leading edge, but I don't want too much of an overlap because it'll show through on the other side. The side it's going to show through will be the underneath, but I still don't want any more than I have to. So be fairly careful if you can. It's not really a case of being as close as you can be, it's being even. Gosh, I'm shaking like a leaf here. Turn the camera on, I'll shake. Okay, and then cut little diagonals in the corners. Right, this is where it gets difficult because the scissors won't get an even distance from the tissue, so you end up with a bit of a wave. That's a bit of a shame. See if I can straighten that up a bit. There we go, that'll do. So all I'm going to do is now fold that round the edge. So again, just a bit of, now there's quite a bit of dope on there now because there's the layer that was on there at first, and then there's the additional layer we added. So now, as you can see, that sticks really quickly and easily. Don't worry about sticking it on the back side just yet, just get it over the 90. Then we'll do the curved edge. Just got to crease that, get rid of that. I think what was happening there was pressing too hard. You really don't need to press very hard at all. So this is Asuka, I don't know how it's pronounced, A-S-U-K-A, and it's available from Mike Woodhouse of Free Flight Supplies. If you tell him Danny sent you, he'll charge you twice as much. No, he won't. Nice guy is Mike. Very focused, but he's an accountant, so accountants tend to be focused. But he's a good guy, and he's got some great stock on his website. Some wonderful materials. So now we just flip round to the back and we just seal it down. Now, as I won't be using any shrinking dope on this, I'll be using a clear dope, and what I'll probably do is actually just spray a layer of dope on top of this. That's probably all it'll need. That's all it needed on the ESAKI, so I'm hoping this will be the same. I don't really want to get into brushing it. So that's that edge all done. So now we just got to flatten down this last piece along here. And in kit scale, how neat you do this covering gets you some good points. So if you can get a nice finish, you know, you get nice shape on your surfaces, your edges, nicely gently rounded. And then you can do a good job of tissue like this. You'll do well on the static table, if that's what you want to do. There's a lot of personal satisfaction in getting it neat. You don't have to do competition. I don't usually do very well in kit scale, to be honest, because I deviate from the plan. The idea with kit scale is you build it exactly to the plan. I've not yet found a plan that I can actually build to and keep it accurate. Apart from Brian Taylor's stuff. Brian Taylor's stuff is I always say that if you deviate from the plan with a Brian Taylor model, you're in trouble. I'm having difficulty seeing whether I've got those edges down properly, but I think I have. Just going over them again, just to make sure. So, there you go. That's the underside, and you can see the overlap is very small. You can't see it. You really can't. And then the top surface, if that indeed ends up the top, it should do. Again, you can't really see very much. But it's all beautifully neat. No wrinkles, no creases. I think, oh, there's a bit there. No, it's not. It's a bit of the wood. Where is that? Just a little bit I missed there. Okay. So you do have to go over it and get the light on it just right so you can actually see any bits that might be sticking up. And I usually find I leave it for an hour or so and then I'll come back to it and have a look just to make sure nothing's sort of sprung up. There you go. And it's plenty tight, taut enough now And you could spritz more water on there and shrink it a bit more if you wanted to, but that's enough for me. And I'll try, as I say, I'll try a coat of dope sprayed on that, probably 25% dope, 75% thinners, and I'll just dust that over and hopefully that'll seal it. Definitely the ESAKI, that would seal it. Well, hopefully this Asuka will also seal. So there you go. I hope that's informative. I did say I'd come back to the Asuka and tell you how we got on compared to the Blackburn's covering, which was ESAKI on the fuselage, and then it was a JP tissue on the wings. Go back to that video if you want to see how we did it with that. Bit of a learning curve. This is how I should do it, and this is how I'm going to do it from now on. Works very well. It's very easy, very quick, very simple. All right, if you've enjoyed that, click like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one, whatever that might be. Bye for now.